Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is for you. I'm Cyclone. This is Let's Play Train Simulator. We're going to go ahead and try and do this run of Sherman Hill today. Now, this is a non-edited version except for the train itself. I have not done any changes to any of the text or anything else. As I'm running this, this is exactly the scenario you're going to see on the introduction to Sherman Hill, which is way up here. Up here at the top. So it's the same scenario as that. I'm using the same GE ES44AC UP on the same Sherman Hill route, nothing different. There's no 1869 switcheroo or anything like that. It's the exact same route as the DLC. So we are going to be playing the scenario as designed. The only difference will be the cars that I'm driving will be from the Independence Loco package, which is the SD40 with the United Way insignia and then the other Independence version as well. I have not used the Independence Loco itself in this scenario because it's a different train model than the one being driven, so I've left that out. I thought putting it as a tribute, but no, I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to have the different rail cars, and the challenge is to get across the map without tripping the PCS, which, as you may recall, if you've played the scenario, happens automatically. There's nothing you can do about it. So you basically have to live with it as you go across the map. If I can get across the map with these cars, then I know that the cars are the problem, and that's where the fix to Sherman Hill needs to be. And I've basically done all the bug testing that I need to show Dovetail Games what needs to be fixed and why it needs to be fixed. So this should be, I hope, good evidence as to why people have come to the conclusion they have, and literally, it's basically 9 years of harassment from us as to what needs to be fixed. Anyway, let's get going. Let's see if we can go ahead and get this train over to Cheyenne. Welcome to Laramie. This evening we're running down to Cheyenne on the number 2 because I'm supposed to show you the sights. My name's Eric, by the way. We can talk some more when we get in the cab. I want to get out of this wind. Okay, Eric. So everything looks normal for now. Then we get back to our train, and you can see those brown cars in behind. I'll show you them a little closer when we get going. That's better. This is an ES44AC or a C45ACCTE if you use the Union Pacific designation. I think you know how to get one of these started. Don't dawdle. I got places I need to be. Put the reverser forwards, take off the brakes, and ease forward gently on the throttle. All right. Now this has a stepped braking setup, so we're going to have to make sure that we got to take 2 steps to get the brake down. Reverser is on. We are going to move the throttling forward. We're now already up to about 2.5 kilometers, or miles per hour, sorry. Easy enough, huh? Well, learning the signals is not as straightforward. Did you study the signal guide? We'll deal with that later. I'm not going to listen to that. Now, for the purpose of my testing on this scenario in the past, I've gone ahead and just literally idled the throttle at level 1 for this part of the journey. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to play this scenario as it's meant to be, get up to the speed limit, which we're not 55 because we're going to be leaving this line. We're going to be going to a 40 line, so I'm going to leave it. You see the 40 ahead. I'm going to treat 40 as our limit. Train coming along. Let's take a look. Saw it was a westbound train, and we got some cars there. So I'm going to go ahead and treat 40 as the ruling speed limit. I'm going to get ourselves up close to 40. And there's no time scenario on this. We can't be late, we can't be early. We're just basically going to go where we need to go, and that's that. So if we play this scenario correctly, we're going to literally find that we have to stop at a red signal along the way anyway, so we don't even need to hurry. We can just take our time. There's no need to even go the full speed limit. I can actually go under the speed limit and I'll be fine the entire way. You can see the triple red signal there. Any train there can't go in any direction for them. Taking the throttle down a little bit here. Say hello to our friends. So as you see, I pulled the throttle down to a level 2 throttle because we're going to be closing in on 40 very soon, and I don't want to break 40. We're now leaving Laramie on track number 2. The tracks are numbered number 1 to 3 from north to south. Number 1 and 2 are the main tracks between Laramie and Cheyenne. Number 3 is 9 miles longer but has less steep grades between Cheyenne and Laramie, so it's generally used for westbound traffic. We'll be passing through a lot of open grassland shortly. Due to the ridiculous, notorious Wyoming winds, not much tall grows here, but the land is good for farming. I'm going to assume not for the tall corn. Maybe other kinds of farming, but anyway. So we're on 0.8% gradients right now. As you see in the US and in Canada as well by that respect, because that's North America. We use percentages, not a ratio. We use percentages. So it's not 1 in 90 or whatever it might be in this case. It's 0.8%. While we're driving along here, let's actually hide this for a moment because we can keep an eye on our speed on here anyway if we need to. Let's take a quick look at some of the controls here. I'm not going to go over the whole train right now, but let's just do a quick look at some of the controls. Make sure there's no signals coming. There is one further ahead. So we have the various brakes over here. There's a dynamic brake. We have the throttle underneath of that. We have another brake over here, which is the train brake. Some other buttons such as the horn. We have the alerter reset, which doesn't really do anything here. We have sander, we have the bell. Nothing really happening there. I'm just keeping an eye on where the signal is, still far away. Speed is good. And there are a few other controls too, such as headlights somewhere along here. Headlights are actually back over here, I believe, somewhere. I'm never sure where the headlights are on this unit. They seem to be in a different spot every time I look, which is kind of, I know, an excuse, but there's some other controls here as well for some number switches, things like that. Nothing major important. This is the cab light, actually. Hello. So we're going to go ahead and just leave the tour like that because I'm driving right now and I don't want to concentrate on trying to show you the cab when I'm driving. So let's go ahead and just look back out the window and we're going to enjoy. I'll actually zoom in a little bit for you. We're going to enjoy the lovely look out the window here. And turn that back on. So we have our green signal. One thing I did not point out about the throttle is it is an 8-step throttle. Notice the different steps there. I'm in step 1, so I'm literally under the 1 right now. But you can go up to 8 for 100%. And you can also, the dynamic brakes also have 8 levels, but we're not going to use the dynamic brakes. That's a different brake. The brake we're going to use is down, that's the reverser actually. That's the reverser. The brake we're using is the regular train brake, which obviously is not set to anything right now. And then I didn't point out the locomotive brake down here either. The independent brake. We're not going to use that. So back out the window. And back to enjoying the nice, lovely sunshine here in Wyoming. So as you can see, level 2 throttle is enough to get us up to speed on this 0.8% gradient. I don't remember it being so easy previously, so I wonder if something changed to make this easier. I may have to rerun Midnight Magnet and see if I can run it now. Or I'll just keep the video I've already recorded. I haven't decided yet. We are approaching Forelle. There's a siding here coming up on the right. See that white sign with a W next to it on the tracks? That's a whistle post. Indicating your crossing is coming up. You need to sound your horn for a warning. Be sure to do this, because not all crossings have barriers. So you must issue a warning. Thanks, Eric. I was already doing it. Oops. Didn't mean to do that warning. So you may have noticed what I was doing was a long sequence. That is the normal horn sequence in North America. I'm sure I mentioned that another couple times somewhere in the videos I've recorded already. But basically short is the typical warning sequence. There are other codes. For example, you can do a certain horn tune to indicate you're about to start moving after you've idled for a while. Turning on the bell sometimes is necessary. In fact, on Canadian locomotives, if you try to use the horn, you're going to find the bell gets turned on automatically and it gets stuck in an on position. You have to actually push the bell twice to turn it off. So I think that's a little bit of a bug. It doesn't change the bell to an on setting, just starts ringing it incessantly. Now this kind of video, I understand, can get a little boring because we are going through countryside where there's not really much of anything going on here. So I know it can also be annoying hearing someone trying to make jokes as you're driving through the countryside. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you pretty much enjoy this drive without too much chatter from me. This kind of drive is more one that you're going to be able to enjoy the view and the situation. I'm going to go ahead and just pipe up when something comes up, or if Eric says something, you know, or whoever is giving me directions, whether it be a signal or whatever else. So I'll do commentary on what's happening, but I'm otherwise not going to try and do too much commentary on what's going on. If there's something scenario specific, like a certain type of setting, I'll try to talk about those kinds of settings. This one is just a casual drive though. Nothing really to talk about. But there will be later. Oh, I didn't mean to take the throttle off. Let's fix that. So I hope you enjoyed the first videos I've been putting up here. I haven't published them at the time that I'm recording this because I'm just doing a test right now to see if this works. And if it does work, then we're going to use it as a scenario for the channels. So we're going to see if it works, and if so, it'll be on the channel. If it doesn't work, then well, you probably won't see this. Now let me check what the signal ahead says, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the different train that we have for this scenario. Because I said I was going to show you this, I just realized I haven't shown you this. So after we get past this next signal, which is about 3/10 of a mile away, once we know what the signal says at least, I'll go back and we'll take a look at the train. That is after dealing with this whistle board. So we have a green signal. There's no signal ahead. Let's take a quick look at our train, shall we? Keep your speed steady while I tell you a bit about the history of the line. Sherman Hill was originally constructed in 1868 as part of the Transcontinental Railway. Since then, there have been several major changes to the route. mainly to help with easing steep grades. In 1901, work was carried out to reduce the ruling grade by eliminating the 700-foot Dale Creek Trestle Bridge and instead running trains through the new 1,800-foot tunnel at Hermosa. A main line was also built between Hermosa and Laramie via Caloris. That's the track on our left, number 1. I got our speed back up now. Okay, we'll leave it at this while we look at the train. So I'm going to move to a 2 view. You can see our lovely American flag on the side of the Union Pacific train on both sides. You can see we have several engines in tow, but let's take a quick look. Stop sign. Let's take a quick look as we see nothing ahead. I'm going to go ahead and hit 8. We're going to, whoops, that's 9. I'm going to hit 8. We're going to watch the train go by. And there's what we have to work with. I have some hoppers and I have some brown box cars. I basically changed everything out for hoppers and box cars at this point. So that's what we basically got a train of. These are the cars from the Independence Loco package. So if you want to run this scenario yourself, assuming I get it to the workshop, you're going to have the Independence Loco package to run this scenario. Keep in mind, if you do download the scenario and you want to put a different set of cars in, because keep in mind, I'm just making sure there's no bug with the scenario itself and make sure it's the cars. So if you want to follow this, play the scenario yourself and you don't have that package, you can put whatever train cars you want in. I don't care what you put in. Put whatever you want in there and drive that. But as is, you'll have to have the Independence Train Loco to be able to run this train at this point. So keep that in mind should you download this scenario, that you're going to need to make any changes you want to make yourself. You can change the engines if you want to as well. I don't care. It's going to be a workshop scenario, not an official scenario. You can do whatever you want with it. So let's go ahead and get back to the cab. Now, because I was showing you the train, I did not see a whistle board, but thankfully we're not penalized for that. It's a standard scenario. A second tunnel was bored in 1918 to permit double track operations. Westbound trains from Cheyenne had always struggled with the 1.55 ruling grade over Sherman Hill Summit. Track number 3 was built consisting of 42 miles of new single track south of the existing main line. To maintain a ruling grade of 0.82%, it had to climb over a longer distance. In 1976, work started on a second line adjacent to track 1 between Hermosa and Laramie, and was designated track 2. That's the line we're on now. Track we're on now. We have noticed a slight amount of lag as we come through Forelle. Even though we have fast load, even though we have high quality and not the highest quality, there is still going to be a little bit of lag here and there. This is again a game from 2006. The Steam version being something like 2009, 2012, even though I think the original version is actually on Steam too. So, because it is such an old game, you are going to see problems with it from time to time. It just has not been upgraded to the current form of DirectX, and apparently, according to DTG, there would be too many things that have to be fixed if it were upgraded to the new form of DirectX. Which begs the question why there's not a new core. And the DLC is not just converted over like with Train Sim World 2, but I guess there's just way too much to fix even with a new core. So they haven't, they're kind of limited, they feel, in how they can upgrade the game, which is unfortunate because it is still the more popular, I think, of the two games. Yes, they've got TSW2 on console, and they're trying to get people to play the game on console. They can't put this one on console because there's way too much that won't work on console. That's all I can really say. They're more keen on keeping the console market happy than they are on keeping the PC community happy, which is a bit of a shame, if you want me to be honest. I feel like the need to try to satisfy PS5 with a train game where you can't even go around the cab and push the buttons, you have to use a controller, kind of ruins the aspect of having a simulation in the first place. So I think this is a bit of a mistake on DTG's part. They should be concentrating on a replacement for this game and trying to improve all the DLC from this game in the new version of the game. But, you know, well, at some point TSW2 will fizzle and they'll just find another project and probably abandon trains completely. Right now they seem to be doing okay with TSW2. I am looking forward to the rush hour expansion that they have coming up. And I will probably get the game for the rush hour expansion. Not to mention being able to take all the original TSW tracks that I can get before buying TSW2 and playing them in TSW2 as well. Let's take a quick look at the mini-map and see where we are here. We are heading up in that direction. We have our train, we're coming from there. We have our train here. Because we're in standard mode, you can see signals on the map. You can see a train coming as well. We seem to have a green signal ahead, and if we were to continue ahead and keep poking ahead, you can find more signals, like a yellow up there, which means that right now there's some kind of thing going on somewhere along the line here. Now, I didn't really notice the last signal if it was green or not, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the speed just a little bit just to be safe, just in case I have to slow down. I don't think we're going to have a red up ahead. In fact, I know the scenario, and we're going to have either a yellow or a green at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and just cut the speed down a little bit just in case we need to. Because I believe there is a yellow somewhere along this part of the road, and there's as you know, there's only a couple signals up until the track 3 section rejoins. So I'm not taking any chances here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it back a little bit, just for safety's sake. Coming to Caloris next. Didn't see a whistle board, but looks like something might be crossing the track here. So if we peek ahead at the signal here, you'll notice that it is a green signal, so I'm going to go ahead and just proceed as normal. This is Caloris Milepost 564. There are some impressive rock formations around here, such as the structure we just passed, I pointed out earlier. The colors of the rocks seem to change depending on the time of day, hence the name. By the way, there's a siding over here. Let's take a look at the map, shall we? Notice the siding. We have these along the road on these kind of travels. That is the Caloris house track. And before we leave that, let's just center back on us. So since I know we had a green signal, we're safe to proceed at line speed. I'm going to go ahead and pull up to a higher speed again, but I'm only going to go very slowly up to that speed. There's no reason to rush. Unlike the scenarios later where you basically have to be at speed if you want to make it. You will see what I mean. Oh, you will see what I mean. You literally have to race to avoid, try and run a red in order to make one of the timings on time. It is ridiculous. There's those little white flags are your mileage markers, by the way. He kind of doesn't bring that up very quickly along the way. It takes a while for him to mention that. That's something that he would have mentioned by the time we left Laramie. So if you look at our little timetable here, you notice we've already taken off 6 tasks. Pretty easy compared to what we were doing in Falmouth, wasn't it? Pretty easy. Just drive along, that's all you gotta do. Next stop, 3 miles from now, number 3 track, just keep on going. They're all go via tasks. They're all go via. Except for the last one, you have to stop at the final stop, which I'm not gonna show you where that is right now. It's in Cheyenne. gone ahead and lowered the throttle back to level 1, as you might have noticed. No reason, we're just getting close to the speed limit. Now you might have heard me mentioning an 1869 version of the track earlier. There actually is one that exists in the game, in the train simulator. If you get the train, I believe it's called the Jupiter. I believe that is the one, or maybe it's the Promontory one, I'm not sure. But there is a train in there that notes that it includes an 1869 version of Sherman Hill. And it's referred to as Cheyenne 1869. But members of the train simulator community have extended this track all the way back to Laramie and beyond. So we have the original post office track that the train stopped by the post office along that track. We have that original track in the game. The original trip to the summit is available on that track. And also some track to the west of Cheyenne and maybe northwest, somewhere in that range is also included. So a little bit of a longer track thanks to work by the community. The previous track just stopped at the Sherman Hill summit. So good work by the community to extend that track, and at some point I'm going to get that locomotive, and we are going to take a look at that track once I am confident driving steam, which I don't think I will ever be confident driving steam, even after I drive steam. I mean, I've seen some of the Workshop Wednesday videos that the Train Sim people put up. Jamie is currently the one doing the driving in the Workshop Wednesday scenarios when he shows off things in the workshop. He actually had a steam engine up on a recent expedition, and he destroyed the poor thing. So all I can say, he managed to get to a point where he couldn't move, and that was the end of it. Poor thing. Let's see what this train is. Westbound cement. And there's our whistle board anyway, so it works out well. Though there really is no point to the whistle board there because we're passing a train. I guess there was a pedestrian waiting on that track. It's a good warning, but... So we're coming up on the number 3 track, and we're right around the point where I would normally expect the PCS to trip. So if the PCS were to trip around this area, then we basically have a similar test to the previous tests. If it does not trip in this area, then we know that we might have an improvement on my past experience. We will find out in a moment. On the right is the number 3 track from Hermosa to Laramie. I'm sure it won't be long before you run westbound on number 3. We actually have a scenario where we do half of it. An original track used to pass underneath us here, but it is long gone. We are coming up to Hermosa shortly. That track he's talking about is in the Cheyenne 1869 expansions that the community has been working on. So if you want to see that original track, go get that locomotive, preferably at a sale, and check it out. Now, I know I made a comment where I had the train rip apart here. I know I ran this scenario previously on my laptop, the original scenario, and I had the same breakage happen at the along the point where we were in Dale. So just because I don't have a breakage here does not mean I'm still not going to have it later on. I am going to be on pins and needles until we get at least to the summit. Once we get to the summit, we're going to see what happens on the downhill. Because bad braking performance could actually trigger a PCS on my own. And having to go to 100% brake, that will trigger the PCS. If you go to 100% braking power, you will trigger the PCS. So you want to never use 100% brakes. So I suspect we're going to have a yellow coming up here because we're coming to the Hermosa area. Let's find out. As we come around the corner, we get a clearer view. You can see the double yellow ahead. So that means we either have to stop ahead or we have a diversion in track. More likely diversion in track, but it could mean stop. Those signals are from the other direction, so I'm not worried, but I am going to go ahead and just naturally slow down at this point a little bit. The 3 tracks here will narrow to 2 at Hermosa just before the tunnel around milepost 547. This area can get pretty busy, so pay special attention to signals. There's your hint to keep an eye on a signal ahead. You can see the signal coming up on the HUD further ahead now, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a brake application on. Because we're in no hurry, I'm just going to go ahead and let the brakes go down a little further until I actually have a confirmation that we are clear to proceed. Once I have that confirmation, we'll adjust to our signal and our speed. We'll adjust to the speed accordingly. I'll go ahead and I'll take the brakes off now. That should be good enough. We can come to a stop if we need to. Or so I say now. So I'm going to take a peek at the signal ahead here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. If we had any problems with the signal ahead, this train was probably the reason for it. He's going slower as well, and you can see the signal coming up now. That looks like a green under a red. So we're going to be going to the track on the right, and we're going to be limited to 30 miles per hour. I will now appropriately increase the speed to 30 miles per hour. We're going to zoom back out in a moment. I'm just leaving it so you can see the signal coming up. And so you can also see the train going by. The other line just moved to a yellow. It's okay, we're not going that way. You can see we are now under the ruling grade of the 30 mile per hour speed limit here. Hermosa Tunnel is coming up soon. It's 1,800 feet long and was built in 1901 with a second tunnel bored in 1918. In other words, it's not on the 1869 route. The tunnel is a popular vantage point for rail fans to photograph passing trains. You don't say. You know what? How about we get our own photo while we're here? So we're going to go into the tunnel proper now and bring the HUD back up. So you notice that the downhill starts after we leave the tunnel. We're on a brief uphill as we get to the end of the tunnel, and then the downhill begins. We should be out of the 30 and back into the 40 by the time we come to that downhill, I believe. Okay, I was close. There's the 40. There's the 40 now. Perfect. And we're now gaining speed on the downhill on the engine side, which is kind of surprising because we don't have a lot of our train on that downhill yet. I'm actually going to go ahead at this point and cut the throttle to see how that affects our train. I know we're going to have a slight downhill. We are going to get close to the 40 at some point. We had a warning sign there. I didn't see if that was for anything different than the 40 we're currently under. I saw a 40 at the top of the sign, which I believe is our speed. Our speed limit. We are going to have another message from Eric coming up. You see the orange indicator ahead. That's our message from Eric. Dale Junction, Main 2 East is the location. We are running on a green signal. It looks like my choice to cut off the throttle was a good decision because we are still far away from our 40 limit. And I do know for a fact that we're going to be coming close to the end of the downhill, coming at the end of the HUD there. But we are going to probably be around 40 before we get to that point. So at this point, this was a good decision. So I'm going to give you a little preview of what the downhill from the summit is going to be like. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, when I get to about 30... Oh, track number 3 splits away here again at Dale Junction towards Perkins. Between Perkins and Dale are the most dramatic cuts and embankments of the route. The hilltops are mostly barren due to harsh winds, but the valleys are full of vegetation because there's no harsh winds, right? So as I was about to say, now that I'm at 37, I'm going to give you a preview of what happens on the downhill later on. I'm going to put a mild brake application on like so, and then I'm going to use the throttle to power through that to maintain speed. So you notice I have a throttle at 12.5% right now, and I'm losing speed, and now up to 25 I'm gaining speed. So, well, right now I'm actually maintaining speed. So the idea will be to throttle through the minimal brake application. Now, I think on a real train, you would actually stop the train and apply the handbrakes and go from there based on doing the math on what your train is carrying, how many handbrakes you need to apply. And that gives you enough control so you can throttle as you need to and brake as you need to. Because we're in a simulated environment, I'm not going to try and do anything to that extent. And it's not always accurate anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and use the brake like this, and that's going to get us down the hill. So we're maintaining our speed very nicely at 36 miles per hour in our current 25-23 configuration. I'm going to leave it here until we reach the Dale Rock, at which point we're going to start moving towards an uphill and a 45 mile per hour speed limit once our train fully passes. As the front of our locomotive starts to get onto the uphill, the downhill from behind is going to eventually be counteracted by that uphill, so I don't feel we're going to break the speed limit here. And even if we do, it might be by a mile or two at most. There are impressive rock formations around Dale, which provide spectacular backdrops, but also show the extent to which the terrain had to be cut to build the railroad. Didn't really get a chance to see what train that was because of the message. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the brakes here at this point. I'm going to let the throttle do a little bit of work to get us a little more speed, and then I'm going to take the throttle back off. So I've cut the throttle off temporarily back to level 1 throttle so that we don't risk getting too much speed here. Once the back of the train reaches that orange bug where the message was, I'm going to go ahead and increase throttle again, because at that point we should not break the 40. In fact, right now should be a good spot. I meant to go up, not down. Now should be a good spot, so I'm going to leave it at a level 2 throttle for a moment. There's another siding there. We have a green. There's no alternate track, so it's just a single green at this point. No red on our signal. We're now under the ruling 45 limit. We're going to have another message coming up at Dale, Maine 2. So let's see what Eric has to say here. We've just passed milepost 543. Now you tell us. As well as the numbered mileposts every mile, there are quarter, half, and 3/4 post-track side. Now you tell us. There are several large bends in the track in the upcoming sections as we approach the summit of the route. Noted. And these are the mileposts he's talking about right here. Now, part of the reason I'm being very casual about this is because I know we're going to have the summit soon. We're going to be downhill all the way to Cheyenne. So I'm being a little casual with my speed, knowing we're going to gain speed on the downhill. I'm trying to intentionally stay under the speed limit. You don't necessarily need to go at the speed limit, because there are going to be a couple speed limit changes on the downhill that we're going to have to contend with. One will go up to a 55, which will give us a little more freedom, but we're going to have a 45 at one point until then. By the way, you may have noticed something that I have not mentioned for a while. The train is not ripped apart. We have our entire train. Well, since we have our entire train, at this point I'm convinced we may have potentially quashed the PCS bug by changing the cars on this train. And that means I have to hold my word. I have to put this on the workshop for you guys. So I'm going to make sure I get this on the workshop for you guys. I'll see if I can do some more edits to the scenario and make it a little more interesting, and then in terms of information, and then I'll get it up for you guys. I'm tempted to just remove Eric from the scenario completely. Just maybe I'll leave him as the introduction, and I'll change what he says, and you can read from the history book as you go. I'll see what I feel like doing. I haven't decided yet. By the way, highest point is coming up. I'm going to take the throttle right off for a moment, because I don't want to be going above 40 at highest point. So I'm going to let the train slow down naturally and lose a little more speed up to that spot. And then as we start gaining speed on the downhill, I'm going to have to start applying the brakes. There's our warning board for the 40 limit ahead. Passenger trains can go 45, but we don't have a lot of them here these days. Mostly tour groups, if anything. There's another milepost. Ah, the crescent moon. We are under 40 miles per hour now, so we are good for the speed limit. If we get down to 35, I will reapply the throttle temporarily, but I don't think we're going to need to go much below that because I want to stay around 35 for the time being. We can adjust our downhill speed based on the what's ahead. Another train coming up. Look at that. There's highest point, and there's the train coming out from underneath of it. The 7704 stack train. We're coming to the highest point on tracks number 1 and 2, which tops out at 8,015 feet above sea level. The track from Buford west rises 153 feet in 4 miles on a 0.82% grade. East from Dale Junction, the track rises 149 feet in 5 miles on the same gradient. Noted. I know I talked about putting more other interesting facts in here. There's not a lot I can really add. A lot of the information I have that I found on my research is already in here already, and I don't really have any other information on Forelle or Caloris at all, because I can't find any information on them on the internet at all. I don't know why. So it's going to be interesting trying to get the information for this. Any new information to add. There's not much I can add. I can fix some typos though. So you may have noticed I applied level 1 brake application. At this point I am using the throttle through that to stay around 35. Right now we're maintaining speed nicely at 35, so I'm not going to tinker with the setup at all until we have a substantial increase, at which point I might have to take the throttle back off. In fact, we're still slightly losing speed, which I'm perfectly fine with. We don't know what's coming up necessarily. We have to assume that regardless of anything I might know, because I played this about 10 times, we have to assume that we could have all green signals, but there could be a red stop signal somewhere ahead too that we're going to get a warning for. So we have to be ready to react to signals. And part of the reason I keep the speed slightly below the speed limit is so I can react to speed limit changes, especially on downhills when I have brakes applied. And being able to also react to signals. And this is one of the reasons I partially ride the brakes, so I have a better reaction to the signals as necessary. We are going to eventually go to a 1.5% gradient. I'm going to have to take the throttle off completely to see how that works. I may have to apply a few handbrakes at that point as well. We shall see. We shall see. Also, one more reason I like to hold the brakes as they are on the engine right now is because if you constantly apply the brakes, you start losing air out of the engine, and you can eventually run out of air. So this is how you avoid a runaway, by just maintaining a constant application that you work with as you're on your way down the hill. I don't know if this is normal on railroad practice. I unfortunately can't speak for driving on a railroad because I've never done that in real life, but it definitely does help in this game. So we are about to pass a speed board for a 55 mile per hour speed limit. Again, we have to wait until our train completely passes the speed board until we can actually accelerate. But there's the green board indicating we can move up. Looks like passenger trains get 70 on that. My goodness. We will eventually see a passenger service on here, and there are some scenarios in the scenario packs that do that. And we will eventually see one of those services. There's a warning for the diverging track for 30 ahead. We're not taking that because there's not obviously a train coming at us on that track, so we're not going to be able to go on that track. That was a westbound coal train, by the way, in case you didn't see that alert. So I'm going to apply a little bit of throttle at this point to give us some power into the 55. We can go a little bit faster at the 55. We are at Buford, but there isn't much to see nowadays. It was founded in 1866 during the construction of the railroad, and at its peak had a population of 2,000. But it's the population of my town. Currently there is a population of just 1, although the whole town was recently put up for auction and sold for $900,000. So if you want your own town, the town of Buford, $900,000. That's all you need. You can buy the town. One person lives there, and you know, if you're the only person living there, that probably makes you the mayor. Now it's worth knowing this route came out as I'm playing this 9 years ago, so it's possible the town of Buford may have lost that resident, or you never know, may have gained another resident. Maybe the guy got married or something, I don't know. Put a little more throttle on. I may notice these were just some cars on the other track here. Let's take a look on top of the train. You can see there is another track there. These are stationary cars. That's why it looks like they're not moving, because they actually are not moving. So we're green for go. That track splits off from the 2 tracks to make the siding. Now further ahead there is another 45 mile per hour second. I believe that's after the Granite area. I don't think there's any other ruling speed changes until the Granite area. Speaking of which, how far away is Granite? Oh, we're going to pass some snow fences, and then Granite's down there about 6 miles away. Saw a whistle board there. Here's some of the snow fences. You can see about the right window there. Here we have a few more, I believe. Yep, there they are. We're going to get a little blurb about those snow fences in a moment. Now that we passed them, we're going to find out about them. We're now up at 45 miles per hour, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the throttle down a notch here. Wyoming is notorious for strong winds, which even today can cause problems for trains by being blown off the rails. In winter, deep snow can fall, and to prevent it drifting onto the tracks, there are frequent snow fences close to the track. We're about to pass some soon. Or we already passed some way further back that you didn't mention. I'm going to go ahead and take the throttle down to 25%. We don't need to necessarily get up to 55. We know there's going to be a break up ahead at some point. And this is a casual drive, so there's no reason to speed. In fact, because we're on a 1.5% gradient, I'm going to drop that throttle off even more. We've hit a stronger ruling gradient, so things are going to be a little more challenging if we have to stop at some point. Now, I believe we still have some stopping power. Let me actually take the throttle completely off. Actually, no. I'll leave it where it is because we just lost some speed. So I'm going to leave it completely where it is. There is snow fences we have a better view of coming up on the right now. So you can see them through the right window. There goes the last one out of the main view and out the right window. I think I see some more up ahead. And I also see another one of our friends up here. It looks like our ruling gradient is holding our speed right now with the level 1 throttle. So this combination is good. I'm going to leave it as is. If I gain any more speed, I might have a harder time holding with this combination. If I lose any more speed, I might have a problem with going too slow. Not that it really applies to our scenario. We just want to maintain a good setup here, and I'm trying to do that. I'm going to try to stay above 45 here, and we're at 45.9 right now. So I'm actually going to go ahead and increase the throttle slightly to give us a little bit more oomph here. Saw a road going by. We just went over a bridge over that road. And it looks like I'm not gaining any speed even on a level 2 throttle right now, so I actually don't feel bad about this increase. We're kind of holding at 45 right now, which I'm okay with. Now we're starting to slightly increase again. We have a signal coming up here. And it looks like that might be an adverse signal. Let's take a closer look. Nope, green over red. I saw that wrong. I knew it wasn't a double red, but I thought I saw some kind of yellow for a second. No, it is a green over red. I'm a little paranoid that there's always going to be a yellow signal stopping us to any red further up. I'm always paranoid. Even if I know the journey is green all the way, I'm going to always be paranoid about that signal showing up in case something is different on that journey. And I'm going to take the throttle completely off because we are coming up on a 45 mile per hour speed adjustment. We are crossing under, I believe, Interstate 80 at this point. So I'll take a look at the road overhead. There it is. And that's a very interesting travel direction for traffic on the interstate. They're going in both directions. Fantastic. Both roads going in both directions. If this route were to be updated today and optimized better, you'd probably have better flowing traffic on the highway. It's like that in Cheyenne as well, with a highway in Cheyenne where the roads do the same thing, crossing over the yard. It was so confusing to me, I almost misidentified. I was trying to identify a building at one point. I couldn't identify it because I'm like, oh no, that's a two-way road. That's not where that building is. No, that was the right building. I just, the road was just not properly indicated as a one-way street. So we're under the effect of the 45. We have been for about quarter of a mile or so now. That was quite a bounce. If we had that kind of bounce in real life, I don't know if we'd still be on the tracks. Those bounces tend to happen whenever something is being loaded. So that shows that there's some bad optimization on some of these older routes. In fact, I kind of alluded back on Falmouth when we were in the docks. I kind of alluded to the fact that, or might have been on the train drives, I'm not sure. I kind of alluded to the fact that on some of the very oldest routes, you can actually have things where Granite is a small community at an elevation of 7,336 feet. It has a small resident population of about 120. Of most interest to us, though, is the stone and gravel quarry, which has a loop track running around the middle. We're going to visit that later, by the way, on another scenario. The gravel pit at Granite has supplied ballast for many miles of railroad track and numerous other construction projects, such as the Denver International Airport. So I was trying to say that some of the oldest routes actually have real huge leg spots on them. And one of those routes has not been revisited and is going to be one of our destinations later on. I won't spoil for now which one it is. Now I believe the next signal is in very short order after the one that's coming up. Where's our spot right now? Ah, we're just past Granite. We're going to Borie, Maine right now. Interesting. Notice I didn't pop up to Granite either. I didn't see a need to since we are going to visit there later. You'll get to see that track later. Besides, I want to stay with our train as much as possible. So I'm going to zoom in for a second here because I think something is going to be coming up here. No, is this still a green? This is still a green. What do you know? We have a green. Now, here's what I find interesting. On a previous run, when the PCS was tripping, I came to that signal before Granite, and it was a red signal. So now that the PCS has not tripped, I'm coming across without any issues. I wonder if there is actually some kind of weird situation where if you are just not at the track on time, another track beats you that track, you suddenly have to wait for that train. Another train beats you that track, you now have to wait for that train. So I wonder if the road is dynamic like that in this scenario, and that's what happened in the previous scenario. Because I did not come across that red signal, and I'm very interested as to why that is. I'm also interested in why I'm going extremely slowly. Now, it is possible, and I'll have to review the video of this to find out, it is possible that I may have simply been going too slow, and as a result of me going so slowly, I should be increasing speed actually. As a result of me going so slowly, the signal didn't have time to turn red, but I would have at least seen the yellow. I'm pretty sure I would have at least seen the yellow. So I am extremely puzzled at this point as to what's going on with that. I will review the video, and I probably will leave an annotation at some point along the video. So having your annotations on, you're going to see a note as to what I find here in my research of my past recordings. Keep an eye out for that. I find it strange that I had to stop and restart in the past, and I had a red signal, and I have been going straight on this time, and I have had no red signal. I find that very interesting. Now it is possible the red signal could be further down the track. This could be a yellow coming up here. If that's the case, I may have a red to wait for. So I may just be running into the train a little bit further down the track. Hopefully not running into it, but encountering it. I just noticed my caps lock key was on, so I turned that off. Not that it affects our journey in any way. Taking the throttle off for a moment so I can see what the signal says. I believe that's a green signal. Yeah, both tracks are green signals. You can go on either track right now. There you go. And it turns out my sixth sense did its job here because there's a 45 limit coming up. I knew there was at some point, so excuse me. My sixth sense kicked in and told me don't go any faster. So even though I am under the 45 limit, I am going to drop it back a little more just to make sure the brakes are still doing their job on this gradient. I'm going to make sure things are still going the way they should. So we are well under our 45 now. 3 miles for me is well under. I'll take that. I'll put the throttle back to 25 to see how that affects it, and we are gaining speed. So if that continues to be the case, I'll take the throttle back off. Ah, now we're losing again. One of the major roads in the area here. This might be Interstate 80 right here. This might be Interstate 80. Either that or it's a connecting road to Interstate 80. By the way, a fun fact about the route here, the old route actually followed part of the Interstate 80 track path, and Interstate 80 just used the old track bed to put one of the roads in. A little interesting tidbit there. One of the exit ramps on the interstate actually used to be the track. And if I can get that information into the workshop version of this, you'll get to see more information about that there. We have a green, the other track has a yellow, and now it has a red, so there's a train coming. Whistle board.
This is Borie. 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 This is Borie.
You're supposed to hold that last whistle until you actually cross the crossing that the whistle board is in reference to. So that's why I'm holding the whistle in that kind of setup. There's our westbound main mixed. Train number 4812. And that's the end of that train. Let's take another quick look outside at our beautiful train. Number 7836 engine. And let's just watch the other engines go by here. 7496, 7602, and the other direction 7810. And there's our box cars and hoppers. You notice they have some kind of dirt in them. I don't know what exactly that is. Let's go check what our signal is. We have a green. I expect me to be green all the way now because I don't think there's any real huge situations going on the track today that are going to cause us to slow down anywhere. We may have a train going into Cheyenne that we have to wait for that I'm not used to seeing because we're not usually here at this point in the journey. Other than that, I don't see too much going on. Maintaining our 25% throttle, we are only at about 600, or is that 800 RPM? 600 might, I can't read the small text on the screen. It is 800, and 129 amps are being run on the engine right now. You notice I wasn't fussing too much with the speed for the last little while. I kept it at our spot a couple miles under 45. I knew we were good for 55 coming up. And since we're on a 1.5% gradient, I was not messing with it. I was keeping that brake application, that throttle exactly where they were. This is a case where I have a lot of experience driving this route already. This was the first route. Aside from the test track, the tutorials, this was the first route I actually drove in the simulator. And for that reason, I have very, very good familiarity with this route, with this track. And I knew that 55 was going to be coming up, so I was in no worry about the 45 limit there. Going to start speeding up a little bit now. The next speed change after we get to the 55, which is right about now. The next speed change is going to be at Cheyenne. We're going to drop to a 40 and then I believe to a 35. Might be, I know there's a 30 if you change tracks, but I think we're going to drop to a 35. And 35 will probably be the ruling speed right up to the end of the journey when we have to come to a stop. Our gradient will also start to reduce by the time we get to that point as well, so we're going to have to be ready to slow down, or to remove our brakes rather, and then when we get towards the end of our journey, actually slow down. How much of our journey remains? Well, Borie Main 2 is our next waypoint, very, very close. We still have these locations. I don't want to say stops because it's not accurate. Wycon is 5 miles away. And over in that direction, we're going to find number 3 track rejoining with the number 4 track, which I'll talk about then. You know, that's 7 miles. At that point, we're in Cheyenne a mile later. Pardon me. And I'm going to leave our speed at around 50. There's no reason to gain anything beyond 50 at this point. Again, because of the downhill, I want to be cautious because we're on a downhill. Nothing wrong with driving safely. Here's another train coming along, 5369 westbound. Going pretty fast. And I'm still gaining speed, so I'm going to take the throttle back to 25 because I remember I was holding pretty well then. At the faster speed now, we might actually lose speed at level 2 throttle. We shall see. Green over red, that means that we're safe to proceed on the main track. We're not going to be taking any diverging track here. In fact, looks like this train's waiting for us. 5313 stack train. I'm going to have to check, but I wonder if that's the train that takes over the track at Granite. I don't remember that train being there before. I think that train takes over at Granite if you're too slow, and you have to wait for that train. I am very interested in researching this now. I am very, very interested. I would not be surprised if that is the case. I honestly do not remember him being there. And I've run this exact scenario about 10 times testing the PCS. Every time I had a red at Granite. And that train has never been there, 5313, at that number 3, at that waypoint track coming from the number 3 track. That's a waypoint track from Spear, heading towards the number 2 track, number 1 and 2 tracks. I've never seen that train there. So, yeah, that tells you, even with the experience I've had driving this scenario, it's something different this time. This is not normal. So we might actually be doing this somewhere within the 80-minute range that we had set. I'm curious now. I should have done the whistle there. Whoops. So our speed is holding steady at about 46 right now. We have been slowly declining. I'm going to actually go ahead and put a little throttle back on. We're coming up on Wycon, at which point I'll take the throttle off again and we'll read what Eric has to say about Wycon. You can see a little pool coming up, and there's Wycon loading in on the right, just insta-spawning like everything does in this game. And we're going to lower the throttle because Eric's about to talk to us. Coming up next on the right is the Wycon chemical plant at milepost 515. It is one of the largest industrial plants served by rail on the route. The main product shipped out of here is fertilizer. And we're going to visit Wycon later. In fact, if we were to head over there right now, we can see some tracks over there now. We're going to be using those tracks when we get into that area later. I've actually seen scenarios on the workshop that go around the entire Wycon chemical plant. Just to give you an idea how big that place is. Let's bring up the map right now and you can see, well, it's not really that big. There's these tracks over here. There's some tracks here. So you're going to do a lot. I've actually seen a 45-minute scenario around just this plant. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. That was a little bit of a jut there. So the track for Wycon has just joined us. And with Wycon joining us, that means we're not very far from Cheyenne, about a mile away from Cheyenne at this point. You're going to see that when you leave Cheyenne in the Granite via Wycon scenario, you have to get up to speed quickly and brake quickly if you want to make your timing on that scenario. The timings are not friendly on these scenarios. So for the sake of anyone's sanity, I recommend playing the standard versions. If you really want to figure out how to beat the advanced versions, I've done 3 of them with 1,000 points. So you're going to see those ahead. Sorry to spoil it, you're going to see it ahead. I know I make the comment it's not important to get 1,000 points on any of the scenarios because the points don't mean anything. I honestly mean that. The points don't mean anything. I mean, it's true when on Whose Line Is It Anyway, the host, Drew Carey at the time, now Aisha Tyler, they literally say the points do not matter. It's like, you know, the TV guide. It just doesn't matter. The track on the right is number 3 track, which is mostly for westbound traffic out of Cheyenne. Number 3 track goes west to Spear, after which trains have an option to rejoin tracks number 1 and 2, which is where number 5313 was, at the Borie cutoff, or continue on number 3 track to Dale Junction. Roger. Let's get the speed back up because I want to show you a little bit of traveling at a higher speed here. We're on a 1.0 gradient now. I'm going to leave the brakes on for now. We're just going to go ahead and fight it. Now we're not going to get 55. We have a 40 coming up, so let's just cut it back down. Now remember I mentioned track 4 earlier? Notice it's a double track over there. The track on the far right is known as track 4. And notice the American flag passing by, the static billboard of just an American flag. Train making some odd noises here. Some odd jumps with loading. This is, again, if the train reacted like this in real life, you might be derailing. But it's a normal loading thing in the simulator, unfortunately. It just shows that the route is not very well optimized, and better optimization could have been done on this route. Not something that they were concerned about back in 2011. When back then the quality of the route, the quality of the gameplay was not as high as it is now. The quality of the graphics, I should say. Back then it was common to be playing on medium quality. Nowadays you're going to see people streaming the game in the absolute highest quality they possibly can and having very crisp graphics. Train Sim World 2, for as much as I hate a lot of the routes being too short in that game, the graphic quality is outstanding in that game. It's just a matter of whether your computer can run it, or whether you have to play on a PS5, or a PS4, or an Xbox. We're now on the outskirts of Cheyenne. There are several industrial spurs which join the railroad here. There's also a typo coming up. Spoiler. Cheyenne itself is the capital of Wyoming and has the largest population of the state. The railroad reached here in 1867 and the city swiftly grew around it. So as you see, trains here were going in the 1800s just like they were in England. So there you go. We have a 35 coming up, so I'm going to take the throttle right off. There's our highway going through Cheyenne. Not really a highway, more of a major road. The interstate would not be going along the railroad at that level like this, with potential for buildings along it. I believe that was a green above us. I didn't really pay attention to it, but I don't really usually need to at this point. It's always a green when we go through here. I don't know if you saw the billboard there. The billboard says, "There yet!" with a guy with his head in his hands. So that's your hotel advertisement in Cheyenne. If that's what hotels are like in Cheyenne, don't stop here. Another train coming along. By the way, notice the other engine here. That's just a light engine. He's waiting for our track. He's taking our track after we go by. So that green is the platform for if you're doing passenger travel or if you're picking up another engineer and changing cab. That is your platform. Let's take a quick look at the mini-map and go back to where the light engine was waiting for us. As you can see, the other train is going by, and the light engine is still hanging out here waiting for our track. So we're going to have a green signal ahead, but let's go back and check out that light engine, shall we? He's literally started moving, so he's good to go at this point. Cheyenne Main Station Depot on the left began construction in 1886. However, by 1971, regular passenger trains stopped running the line. Mainline trains now only stop briefly for crew changes, which I talked about, and are soon on their way. So if you pull into that track, you're changing crew and you're on your way again. It's on its way with new crew. So your track, yellow on the track to the right, we are still under green, of course. I believe that next little orange blurb is going to be where our typo is. I'm slowing down a little earlier than I planned. I haven't taken the brakes off, and because the gradient has smoothed out, it is slowing me down a little more than I wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the throttle a bit more. But because we're almost at our stop, I'm just going to keep the brakes on the engine at this point. Just going to leave them there because the gradient is still a downhill. There's no reason to take the brakes completely off because we're going to need them soon anyway. I think it'll be more interesting seeing how fast we can stop at 30 miles per hour than a lower speed. Like our limit is going back up to 40, but like I said, we're not going to necessarily get all the way up to that. By the time we can get to that, we're going to be slowing down anyway. In fact, that 97 at the other end, that's our final stop. Cheyenne, the oil refinery, is on the right and is a key industry. Is a key industry. There's your typo. It has a crude oil capacity of 52,000 barrels per day. Refined oil is exported by road and rail primarily in the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountain region, which includes eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, which is where we are, and western Nebraska. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and take the throttle off. If you really want to game it, you can try to stop for the signal, assuming it's a red signal. We know it's a green. We know we can go beyond. And theoretically, we can go right to the map edge if we want to, but we have to stop within this marker. We have lots of room to make this stop. For realism purposes, I'm not going to go to the map edge where the buffer is because the railroad would continue normally beyond that point, so I'm not going to show you that area. Plus, the scenery just comes to an abrupt end, the town and the area. So I'm going to go ahead and add some brakes at this point. I'm not trying to gain the signal, so I might go slightly past it, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I think I'm going to go past it. That's fine. If I was fussy about it, I'd be turning on some handbrakes right now. We might actually be okay. Actually, we might stop for the signal. Look at this. We're down at 14. We're doing really well here. We might be stopping for the signal. We are going to stop for the signal. Look at this, kids. Look at this. We're going to stop gently for the signal. So again, as you see, we do have a green signal here, but we don't have to stop at this signal. We just made it. We just managed it. Oh, that was beautiful. Let's look outside our train as we finish the scenario here. I don't care, that was not a good cut. We're okay with that. As you can see, our new train of boxcars and hoppers made it across the map cleanly. How far back does that train go? Notice the road here. That train goes all the way back, past the end of that road where it curves, and we're at the end of it right now, right there. In front of the other signal block. We are perfectly in front of the other signal block. Red signal, we're not allowed to go backwards. Too bad. Well, we've arrived at our final stop. I hope you found this run useful. I'm sure I'll see you around as you get more experience, to experience more of the line. And that's the end of the scenario. As a couple cars go by, a truck goes by in the other road over there, we're going to freeze that car as we go to the mini-map. And I'm not normally going to show you the ending screen. I think I kind of alluded to that back at Falmouth. Unless I remove that cut, but in case I did remove that cut, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to, for standard scenarios, get in the habit of showing you the ending screen, because if you drive properly, there's nothing to report here. It just shows you did everything, and that's it. It shows you what you drove, and that's it. So there's nothing really of interest on this screen, unless you have some speeding penalties, in which case it might be interesting to review how you did on that journey. But we don't have that. This is a pretty boring screen, so I'm just going to say, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. We're going to, I'm going to put that one in ahead of all the other videos I've already recorded. So you're going to be seeing back in time next time. We're going to have a run on the second scenario, which is the Welcome to Cheyenne scenario. That's the other scenario that is only available in standard mode. The rest of them have an option of standard or career options. Back then they gave you both options. Nowadays they only give you career. And you have to convert to standard if you want to steer yourself. Thank you, TS Tools, for that option for the people who want that. As for the amount of time we took, notice it was 94 minutes. So I'm going to research that red signal and see what is going on with that. If that actually was a case where I beat that 5313 train to the track, and if that 5313 was indeed the train that we normally would wait for. I actually want to know that now. Hey everyone, Future Cyclone here. I'm still recording more train simulator videos. You've got lots to look forward to, but before we move on, even though I've done all these other videos since then, I wanted to answer this question, and I'm now coming to you in the future, well after I've recorded all these scenarios, to say, yes, I have figured out exactly what happened with this scenario. You remember seeing 5313 as we went along here? I'm going to go ahead and just start the video. This is VLC, so you're going to see some VLC icons here. So you're going to notice that the scenario will move along here. I'm going to actually zip ahead. But before I zip ahead, and what you're going to see on this footage, this is one of the first times I played this scenario. It's now 1804. You're going to see that, I'm zooming in, you can see a yellow signal around the corner. Let's zip ahead a little bit. And you can see indeed I am passing that yellow signal. Let's skip ahead a little bit more. And I might have gone past the point where I show you on the map, but I'm going to try to let it play for right now, because you will see what I'm getting at here anyway. And just so you know, you can see this is indeed past recording. I'll turn the volume up. And not only is that a red signal, which is right around here where my mouse is, to the left of the north indicator over here, but above that north indicator, you're going to see that there's a 5313 stacked train. Guess who that is? Let me turn my volume back down because I want to talk. Guess who that is? That is the train that was waiting for us at the Borie cutoff. So if we zip ahead here, you're going to see, of course, that train does come along. And you're going to see it go by. The label's going to go by with it here in a second. Again, the bad cuts that I don't mind doing in this kind of video. And if we skip ahead to the signal here, you're going to see indeed the signal up here is red. I clearly just reviewed the video right now, and I told you in that video, I remember, that I was confused as to why this signal was green. I thought I remember seeing this signal as being red before, and the reason I knew that is because we are south of Granite as we sit on the map right now. We are south of Granite. The Granite loop where you visit in the third scenario, you'll see more about that in the future. That is up there. We're south of that loop. And
I remembered that exact location, which is why I was a little confused when I was doing the actual run. And then when we got up to the other end where the Borie cutoff is, that's why I'm like, yes, that is the train that went by. I know I saw that train. So I had to research that, and I had to see for myself exactly what was going on here. So you can see that indeed the train is blocking our path, and we have to wait for all that to go by before we can go. It's actually not that long by now because part of it's already passed by us. So eventually that train will pass by and we get our green signal and we go. But we're now about 5 minutes later than we were. So players are not able to have this optimal driving experience that we've now recreated in my latest footage of this scenario. And all it took was editing out these same boxcars you see on this train passing by. I had to remove those boxcars. A little bit of lag on the video. I think it's from pausing it, VLC thing. I had to remove these boxcars from my train and replace them with something else so that my train wouldn't break apart. Notice their trains never break apart. Mine does. Like, if you drive the stereo originally, it is going to break apart. So, you're probably going to ask me, well, how are you supposed to make this for yourself? And I'm not going to go ahead and give you the tutorial of how I do this with TS tools right now. That's going to come at a later time. All I did was change out 2 cars, and I'll show you that when I change an engine sometime. But for right now, all you need to know as we get our green signal here in this footage now, all you need to know for right now is that this scenario, the one that I've edited, is on the Steam Workshop. Go download that one if you want to play the original scenario. I'm going to see if I can add a couple of extra notes to it regarding additional history elements. But even if I don't, even if all I do is correct a couple typos here and there, you're going to see this scenario in the workshop. And you're going to be able to play this scenario straight through optimal footage, no problem. We're going to go ahead and leave this footage because I'm just going to carry across the level crossing here and limp my way into Cheyenne with whatever is left of my train. Right now it's still all of it because I think I actually, I think in this footage I used a code I used some changing in the scripts to keep the couplers, make them tighter so the train wouldn't fall apart. But that can break other scenarios. I think I mentioned that in my video run. But nonetheless, I'm going to stop blabbing here because you basically seen everything you need to see to prove that the scenario is bugged and that I managed to fix the scenario. I'm happy about that. I did something for you guys. Go play that scenario and enjoy a nice 90-minute run across Sherman Hill if you want to. And your challenge for the day is beat that train, make him wait at the Borie cutoff. Good luck, guys. I'm Cyclone. See you next time for Welcome to Cheyenne. That is our introduction to the Cheyenne Yard. And a very busy place. We're going to get to see some of it as we drive around picking up cars and taking them everywhere. So I'm Cyclone. Have a wonderful day, evening, or night, whatever it is for you at your part of the world. I will see you next time as we explore the Cheyenne Yard. Bye-bye.